Welcome to The Walkthrough with Monte Spiller. The Walkthrough is hosted by Go Power Cats Cole Carmody and sponsored by The Wooden Cork. Use the code LIFEOFFITS for your special discount. Now let's get into the studio for The Walkthrough.
Hello, everyone, and welcome in here to The Walkthrough with Monte Spiller. I am Cole Carmody, joined by former Kansas State defensive back and, should we say, defeater of the Kansas Jayhawks. Did you ever lose to KU, Monte?
I did not.
Undefeated against the Kansas Jayhawks, just like every single player at Kansas State for the last 17 years. The last 17 years, K-State obviously extended the streak over the Jayhawks on Saturday in Lawrence, 42-17. We're going to wrap up that game, give you our major takeaways of the Wildcats' beatdown of the Jayhawks, and then we will get you set for Kansas State and Texas Tech inside of the Bill 2:30 kickoff against the Red Raiders. Monte, let's start with that game on Saturday against KU. I don't know the last time I've seen K-State look as dominant in a situation where you thought it might be kind of dire after getting down 7-0. That was one heck of a game to watch.
Yeah, I would be lying if I would tell you I expected the Cats to dominate the way they did, but I am very happy that they did. You know, I felt like it would be a close game, kind of what you and I alluded to on last week's show. Special teams would play major roles in the game, and it did right away with the kickoff being fumble, giving KU a short field. They scored per what the referee said. I think it was a fumble, but that's just my point of view. I don't have purple glasses on, but it was a fumble in my eyes. But either way, it put KU up early, but I love the way our boys responded. We didn't panic. We came right back and said, you know what? We are still who y'all thought we were. Regardless of what our record dictates, we are still Big Brother.
It's always so interesting because every year, you know, I alluded to it. KU makes mistakes. Like the last 3 years, KU has made that mistake. And it looked like early on that maybe K-State was the team that made that mistake. But we talked to Chris Kleiman after the game, and he said that nobody was worried. Like they fumbled that football, and it was like, okay, let's go. So what? Next play. And that was not a mentality we'd seen from this Kansas State team earlier in the season. And obviously something changed along the way, Monte, because you and I have had multiple conversations on air talking about this group. Just they haven't shown that fire, but they showed that fire on Saturday. And that's exemplified by Avery Johnson scoring the first touchdown of the game and just being fired up. Like, people underestimate how important this game was to that group of Kansas kids. I mean, I saw on the punt block for a touchdown, a group of about 4 or 5 guys on special teams, former walk-ons, all Kansas guys celebrating in the end zone. And that really stuck out to me because, you know, with the new roster limits and the new age of college football, you're not accustomed to seeing that. But it really just does mean more for these kids from Kansas to win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where you talked about Coach Kleiman said there was no panic in those guys once they fumbled the ball and they scored. And there was a confidence I saw on both sides of the ball. We honestly, probably after Avery scored the touchdown and tied up, there was no sense of panic. Mm-hmm. And I genuinely, in my mind and my heart, said we got this game because there was a confidence about that team that I hadn't seen all year on both sides of the ball. Even with the special teams after the fact, there was a confidence about them, and they wanted it more. And I think they got tired of hearing about how much better KU was this year than us, how this is the year that this is the team that's going to let K-State Nation down and break the streak and whatnot. And I think our guys got tired of hearing about that, and they showed up ready to prove everybody who doubted them wrong.
And we had a chance to talk to Taylor Portier after the game, obviously been there for 7 years at K-State, just you know, one heck of a guy, Emaw through and through. He said after the game that Chris Kleiman told them that the Kansas Athletic Department had a conversation with the K-State football team about here's what happens if KU wins, right? Here's the contingency plan if the students storm the field. And Taylor Portier, as only TP can say, said, wow, I hope that happens to you, but that will never happen to you. The only rushing they were doing was to their cars because of the rain. I mean, it was just one of the best quotes that, and I've covered this football program for about 5 years now. It's one of the best quotes I've been around and heard. I thought those kids played their butts off, Monte, and it was really impressive. And we'll start on the offensive side. Obviously, anytime you put up 42 points, you score 5 touchdowns on offense, I mean, you're doing something right. Avery Johnson, 11 of 17 through the air, 231 yards. But really, to me, the MVP of this game goes to Jace Brown. 4 catches, 160 yards, 1 super long touchdown of 78 yards. Number 1 can be unguardable, and when you have number 1 and number 2, Jace and Avery, both dialed in together, that is a really hard duo to stop.
Yeah, and they've proven in big games. I remember last year when Jace caught a deep ball against Colorado late to kind of put K-State back up and solidify that win. I'm not saying his deep ball solidified it because we were up and pretty comfortable, but it definitely took any hope away that KU may have had at that point, and it took the win out of that stadium. And as you talked about how the people were rushing to get to their cars because of the rain and that touchdown as well. But no, they were on. They looked good even when Avery had more time in the pocket and Jace caught the ball on the 1 yard line. Think about how much time he had to step up in the pocket, and kudos to the O-line. They did a phenomenal job of giving him time and to find Jace deep in the in the back of the end zone. Not back in the end zone, right before the end zone. Catch the touchdown. It was amazing. And when those two are clicking, they are fun to watch and they are hard to defend. So hopefully that trend continues throughout the season.
Well, you bring up the offensive line, and I mean, we looked at this Kansas rush defense, and it'd been very spotty. And on the day, Monte State really didn't run the ball, but they really didn't have to. They had just under 100 rushing yards until Jacob Knuth came in at the very end and broke off a 40-yard run. They end the day with 140 yards rushing. But to me, that doesn't tell the whole story because K-State was having so much success through the air, and really they only threw the ball 17 times. They just controlled the game. I mean, they were never needing a big play, right? Like it just felt like they were getting into second and manageable. They would get into third and manageable. They'd pick up a first down and then they'd hit a big play. And then they just suffocated, KU on defense. And so the offense didn't really need to be super electric, but they got the job done. And when they had the ball, you felt like that, K-State was going to not screw up. And KU didn't do that. They screwed up multiple times. You just felt like K-State just had to be steady Eddie, and that's what they were.
Yeah, shout out to Matt Wells and the whole offensive coaching staff. They, a bye week works wonders for you sometimes. I thought KU had a bye week too, but I felt like our coaching staff did a better job than their coaching staff of preparing our guys for this game. The offense of scheme that we had was working. They never really were off balance. We moved the ball that well. We dictated what we wanted to do, and even when we didn't get a first down, we walked away comfortable, confident, knowing that we'll come back the next drive and do what we have to. But yeah, that offensive staff did a great job. Personnel-wise, I feel like KU was outmanned, out-schemed, and we had more physicality than they did the entire game, and it showed.
But the real story of this game, besides Avery, because I think Avery was probably, the MVP if you could single out one person. But if you're going to single out a coach in this game, Monte, as being the MVP, it's Joe Klanderman, because that defense was on fire. And I know you had to have been smiling from ear to ear watching those guys create turnovers, create havoc. That was the best the defense has played all year against, let's say it, a really good Kansas offense.
Yeah, I agree. I was concerned. I talked about it, KU has had the reputation for the last several years of doing, like we talked about it, doing the most pre-snap movement shifts, getting guys off balance, getting their eyes bad, and somebody normally is wide open, and that's when they get the big plays. That didn't happen on Saturday. And Coach Klanderman had everything accounted for, and it's one of those things where we've been talking about Des Purnell, man, like they said, mama, there go that man. He was all over the place, and as he went, the defense went, and it wasn't just one guy. All our guys in the back end, our D linemen, were getting to the ball, running backs. Had Jaden Daniels, he looked like he wanted to cry.
Yep.
And that was one of the best defensive performances I have seen from our team in a long time. And I loved it even more so because they were throwing up the lynch mob sign after the fact, and were having fun, and they were hitting guys and flying to the ball. And there was no hesitation at any point from the defense.
No, Jalen Daniels, you mentioned it, 17 of 35 for 129 yards. Monte, that's good for 3.7 yards per completion. He only threw one interception. Cole Ballard came into the game, threw an interception. Obviously, they got the strip sack on Jalen Daniels on fourth down. That was recovered by Malcolm Alcorn Crowder. Gunnar Maldonado was the one who picked off Ballard at the end of the game. But I mean, the defensive line was tremendous. 4 sacks against a team who hadn't really given up that many sacks outside of Texas Tech. Texas Tech got to him for 8. K-State ended up with 4 on the day. Jordan Allen, Ryan Davis, Malcolm Alcorn Crowder, and of course Des Purnell. Cody Stufflebean probably should have had a sack. Jalen Daniels just kind of flung it out of bounds there at the end. But man, I was just really impressed with this defensive line, and like looking ahead to this Texas Tech game and the rest of the season, they're going to need those guys to step up, and they're really starting to click on defense.
They are. And, we talked about it early in the year. We were missing pieces here and there. The secondary wasn't aggressive. We couldn't really stop the run like we wanted to. Our linebackers are playing well most of the time, but then there were times where we have mental breakdowns, and some guys were on the same page. And as of today, as we talk about it, last Saturday's game was, like I said, the first time we saw team defense, and we getting guys back healthy, although we do have a few guys missing and a broken wrist from Romaine, but he still was out there making plays. And that tells you a lot about that defense, and that tells you a lot about these kids on this Kansas State team. A lot of players want to play, but he wanted to be out there in the Sunflower Showdown. That tells you the resolve of this team, and they're going to be scared to play moving forward. Honestly, before Saturday's game, I think a lot of people kind of, expected K-State to be an underdog at home against Tech, which makes sense. But now, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how we respond moving forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of folks looking at this game against Texas Tech and saying K-State has a legitimate chance. Obviously, we'll get into that here in a second, Monty. But as we wrap up Kansas, I mean, there's so many good things that happen for K-State. I mean, I think this is K-State's best game of the season, but to me, it was the physical domination, the offensive line, the defensive line. I mean, you look at those 2 spots, and those are 2 spots that we talked about all year. Like, we have to see something. The offensive line was bad against Arizona. They were just bad. And now they might be one of the best units on the team. I don't know what happened. But I do know this, that they took what was being said personally. And you know what? It'd be very easy to pack it in at 1-3. And the odds of K-State winning out are not great. Like, let's just call it how it is. We're going to talk about it. K-State they control their own destiny. If they win out, there's a good chance they'll be playing in Arlington for a Big 12 championship. We'll get to that. But I mean, they took what was being said personally, and they understood when they were 1-3, they didn't care about what anybody else thought. In today's age of college football, you look around what's going on with Florida State. You look around what's going on with Florida. You look around, you see LSU. These teams just give up after they lose 2 or 3 games. But Chris Kleiman kept the locker room together, and it's been really impressive to see. No matter how Saturday goes, no matter how the end of the season plays out, the fact that they were able to get this thing back on the tracks is really impressive.
It is, and like you just talked about, there are a lot of schools who have a lot more money than we do, and who have a lot more notoriety than we do, that have laid down, and their administration quit on them. They fired the coach, or they're making excuses. And there are times like people were calling for Coach Kleiman's head, people were calling for Coach Wells' heads earlier, but the fact that they put their head down, they blocked out the noise, and they continue to work and put the pieces together that they need to get to where we're at now speaks a lot about the culture of K-State and how we do things. We don't have to have the biggest stadium. We don't have to be part of a big conference, as they say. Big 12 is big enough for me. I love it here. But we find a way to do things. And K-State has always had that blue collar mentality, and it's showing right now of how these kids don't quit, and we don't allow what other people say or think about us dictate how we play. And look at us now.
So you're right. I mean, it's awesome. I'm so happy for those kids inside of that locker room and those coaches that they have been able to figure this out, because nobody wants to see kids transfer. Nobody wants to see coaches get fired. You don't get into this business for that. So the fact that they are able to hang in there, you're right. I mean, Chris Kleiman has established a culture at Kansas State that's just phenomenal. And, looking at this game now, as we kind of shift our attention here, K-State's 4-4, right? Not out of the woods. They have a long way to go. And this Texas Tech team, 7-1, number 13 team in the country, 7.5-point favorites according to Vegas. Fox 2:30 kickoff. This Texas Tech team is good. And if you've watched any of this Texas Tech team, you know that they are incredibly talented. We'll start on the defensive side of the ball, Monty. This Texas Tech defense is really good. And you look at what they've done. They're led by Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker. He's got 70 tackles on the season. They also have two incredibly good pass rushers in David Bailey and Romello Height. I look at what this front seven is able to do for Texas Tech. You look at what K-State has to do to be successful. They have to run the ball, but that's not an easy task against the Red Raiders.
Yeah, this ain't your grandfather's Texas Tech defense. This is a new age defense. In years past, Texas Tech would put up 70 points and beat people, and their defense would give up 60 points. But this is not the same defense. They are something special. One of the top defenses in the Big 12 and also in the nation. They are fast. They're athletic. They are very well coached, and they play tough, and they're physical. So K-State definitely has our hands full this week. And yes, you're correct. We didn't struggle against KU running the ball, but we weren't dominating running the ball either. So we got to figure out a way to run the ball against a really quality defense to open up the pass game, because, we can pass the ball, but we got to give every time. And they do a great job of pass rush as well. So I watched when KU played against Texas Tech, and I was just like, these guys are deep and they're talented all over the place. And that still remains. And a lot of times Texas Tech's identity has been their offense, but I think now the defense is more so their identity than their offense. So that's a challenge in itself.
No doubt. I mean, I think without a doubt, I think the defense is the better unit for Texas Tech. I mean, it's also something you have to keep in mind. Going on the road, it's almost a little easier to play defense. And Monty, you would know this better than anybody else. But when you don't have, that crowd on offense, you've got the crowd yelling and screaming at you. When you don't have to worry about that, communication becomes a little bit easier. You can kind of feed off your sidelines momentum. I look at this Texas Tech defense, 2.8 yards per carry, and they allow one explosive run a game. That's 10 or more yards. So this has been a really good run defense. But let's not forget that Avery Johnson, the last time K-State played Texas Tech, had 5 rushing touchdowns. I get it. It's a brand new team. But I know who hasn't forgotten that is the head coach of the Red Raiders, and Joey McGuire.
Oh, yeah. They're well aware of it, and they remember it too. And understand, like you said, they are all new players for the most part, and they understand schemes and whatnot. But they're going to keep an eye out for Avery. And if I'm coach, I'm going to have somebody spine him, maybe Rodriguez or somebody, and not let him get loose. Now, K-State, on the flip side, also is aware that they know what he's capable of, and they have different players. But it's something in the back of their mind, and they have to respect it, and they just can't not have somebody watching him at some point, because Avery can hurt you with his legs, as they were found out a couple of years ago when he scored 5 touchdowns against them.
I feel like in some games you have to run to throw, meaning you have to establish the run and then open up the passing game. Texas Tech's defensive backs are good. Like, there's no doubt about it. They're one of the best teams in the country for a reason. But their front seven is clearly better than their secondary. I think in this game, Monty, you have to throw to run. Spread them out. Get them to cover those wide receivers. I think this is a great opportunity to throw to your tight ends. Garrett Oakley, he didn't have a single catch in the game against Kansas. That was after a week in which he was phenomenal. I look at 86. I look at number 0 in Lincoln Cure. Some of these other tight ends, I look at them as mismatches, because if you can flex them out and you can get some of those guys to kind of widen the field for you, it makes it easier to run the ball up the middle.
Yeah, and passing the ball, I agree on that, but it's not your traditional passing the ball. You got to do short game. You got to do screen game, because the screen passing game, because this Tech defense, they flow fast. You have to get them off balance. You got to run reverses. You got to throw a few trick plays in there as well to slow them down, because if you try to drop back and pass, they will eat you alive, and you will not get the ball out as quick as you would like to, and Avery will take a lot of hits. But I agree, the passing game is very important, utilizing the tight end, even using a 2-back system where you have a back block to the flats. Take what they give you, and then once you get to the point where you go over top, then go over the top. But at that point, hopefully Jace will be one-on-one with whoever's covering him, and you can use his speed like we have in the past. But yes, the pass game is very important, but you got to be very smart about how you do that, because if not, they can cause turnovers in a heartbeat, and they have, and they will continue to.
No doubt about it. Avery Johnson on the season, by the way, has only been sacked 6 times. I put in my notes, something has to give. This Texas Tech defense is very, very good rushing the passer. But Kansas State's offensive line has been among the nation's best at not getting sacked. And so we'll see which one gives there. I think that Texas Tech's pass rush is elite. It doesn't matter who they're facing, but it's a really good challenge. And I don't know if they've seen an offensive line that's as good at picking up blitzes, that's as good as identifying stunts. That's really where K-State's been good. They don't have the biggest guys. They don't have the most athletic guys up front, but they have really smart offensive linemen, and Brian LePac's done a really good job with that group. And so, I think if you force Texas Tech to blitz and play man coverage on the back end, we saw what happened with Jace Brown and Avery Johnson. And I just get this feeling that Texas Tech has this maybe not superiority complex, but they feel like they are going to play their base defense and it's going to be good enough to beat K-State. And I don't know if that's the case.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. But I feel like as far as them playing a base package, and I hope that that's the case, but it's one of those things where they are aware, and the national media knows it too. K-State, when they get hot, and I feel like Tech has caught us at the wrong time.
Yep.
We're getting hot. We're getting confident. And it could be any other team besides Tech coming in, whoever it would be, I would be nervous. And we're getting healthy. Like I said, we're clicking, we're figuring out what's going on. And I truly believe Coach Wells, especially, and people forget, he used to be the head coach of Texas Tech. He has a few plays in his back pocket that we haven't seen. And I can almost guarantee you we will see a few wrinkles this week at the game Saturday that we haven't seen. And people be like, man, that was pretty good. So I'm excited to see what he brings out as well against this Tech defense.
K-State is as hot as they've been all season long. If you were to ask me at what point would you want K-State to play Texas Tech, it would literally be right now. This is the best they've played all season long. You're right. They're getting them at as good of a time as possible. And if we flip the ball over to the other side here, Texas Tech's offense is interesting. They average 43 points a game. That's first in the Big 12. They get almost 500 yards a game. That's first in the Big 12. Their passing game, almost 300 yards a game, third in the Big 12. Rush for almost 200 yards, that's fourth in the Big 12. They've got a very high touchdown rate. They get a lot of yards per play. All these numbers, they all add up. But the one thing that is looming over Texas Tech is Baron Morton, their starting quarterback, is now back. He hasn't played in a few weeks, and he could have played last week against Oklahoma State, but they chose to have their backup play. Well, their backup, Will Hammond, tore his ACL. And so now you have your starter back, but you lost your backup who won you a game against Utah. He can't get hurt, Monte. Like, Baron Morton cannot get hurt because if he gets hurt, you have a fifth-year senior quarterback who has hardly played as your third string. And he looked good against Oklahoma State, but, man, I look at this game, and it's like if you can get to Baron Morton, you can really, really disrupt the flow of this game.
You're right. And the thing that concerns me about that, yeah, he's coming back. He's going to be a little rusty. No matter, you can do as many reps as you want to in practice, but game speed is always different when you have other guys from different teams trying to take your head off. But on the flip side, too, I think Texas Tech is going to come out and try to run the ball. And they have a really good run game. And that makes me concerned. Reason being, normally the pass game is very effective for them, and it still will be. But their run game has been strong enough where they can lean on that. And my question is, can K-State's defense stop their run game? If they can stop the run game, we can be in pretty good position. But if not, it could be a long day for our defense. And it's like you said, normally the run game opens up the pass game, and they have a really good pass game. So I look to see Texas Tech use the run game to protect the quarterback, for one, to limit his hits, and to also kind of slow the game down and keep our offense off the field as much as possible.
It'll be interesting. Cameron Dickey, the running back for Texas Tech, has been unbelievable. Will Hammond, the backup, was a running quarterback. He had a lot of rushing yards, but he's not going to play in this game. You mentioned their running attack and also their passing attack. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up Caleb Douglas, one of the best wide receivers in the Big 12. Coy Aiken is also really good, leads their team in receptions, and they've got another tight end in Terrence Carter, wouldn't you know it, another tight end in the Big 12 who's really good. I found this stat with rushing yards, Monte, and I shared this on the K-State pregame show with Fitz, but they ran the ball for 92 yards against Oregon State. Now, they destroyed the Beavers in that game, but we know Oregon State's a mess right now. They ran the ball for 169 yards against Houston, and they destroyed the Cougars in that game, but still very much less than their average. And against Arizona State in their lone loss, Monte, they ran the ball for 78 yards. And so you're right. Their rushing attack is really good. But anytime they've gone up against a team with the solid front seven, it hasn't been as good as the numbers indicate. And you go back and you look at K-State against the run these last few games, there's no reason to believe that they won't have another at least respectable performance against this Texas Tech run offense.
Yeah, I tend to lean towards the defense, knowing the confidence we're playing with right now, knowing the depth that we have, the fact that it's in Manhattan, not in Lubbock, not a light game, and the energy for us will be high. I'm not saying Tech won't be ready, but it's just a different environment playing in Lubbock than it is in Manhattan, Kansas for a road team. And so I think our defense is going to be fired up. I don't think we'll have a hangover from the KU game. Honestly, I think our guys, after the game was over, we knew we were the better team. We celebrated, and I guarantee, I can almost guarantee Sunday night, Monday morning, we were done with KU. Yeah. And it's not being disrespectful, but our minds was on Texas Tech. And I feel like our guys understood that assignment. And having a bye week prior, I can almost guarantee that we worked some Texas Tech stuff as well, getting ready for that game, knowing what we had in front of us. So the defense is more than capable. The question is, are we able to be physical with them early to dictate the flow of the game? If so, it could turn out pretty good for us against the run game.
You know, it's one of those things where if you were playing Oklahoma State this week and then you were playing Texas Tech, maybe you'd worry a little bit for a letdown. But how can you have a letdown game when you're at home against, the supposed team that everybody's already crowned as the Big 12 champions, and you're coming home with a chance to play for your season? I mean, that is still on the table, right? Like, there's going to be plenty of conversations. If K-State can win this game, there's going to be plenty of conversation about, what does K-State need to do to get to Arlington? But I will tell you from the Texas Tech side of things, I mean, folks are already counting this game as a win. You go and you look at the national folks, they're already talking about potentially college game day being in Lubbock for BYU, Texas Tech next week. I mean, Texas Tech just had a big win. All that's out there. They have BYU next week at home. It just kind of feels like a really bad time for the Red Raiders to play K-State. They're going to be ready. I mean, Joey McGuire's a good coach. He's going to have those guys ready. But this is the best team that Texas Tech has played since Utah. And, I mean, K-State's the most physical team they've played. I'm not going to sit here and say that I think K-State's going to destroy Texas Tech or anything like that. Texas Tech is a very, very good football team. But I think folks are overlooking K-State just a little bit this week.
Yeah. And that's to be expected because we hadn't been a very consistent, good team as of late up until the last couple of weeks. So if you don't follow K-State as close as we do, I can understand why you would feel that way. That's a fair assessment, but we know better. And it's one of those things where if you want to we like the underdog role. It is what it is. And it's one of those, it's hard to explain, but we embrace it as a fan base. We embrace it as former players. We embrace it as current players. Go ahead and doubt us. That's fine. And then when you doubt us, okay, thank you for doubting us and see what happens. And I think that's kind of the mind state that we have right now. And it's okay what the national media thinks about us. We don't care. We don't care because the national media is not going to line up on that field on Saturday and play against Tech. We are, and we know what we bring to the table.
And before we get into our picks, I want to ask you for a few things that K-State has to do to win this game. And I'll start. I wrote these down because I was thinking about this. What is the formula for a K-State win? And as simple as it sounds, don't turn the ball over. I mean, Texas Tech is really good at creating turnovers. If you are positive in the turnover department against this team, you got a really good chance. It can be even and you can win this game. Just don't lose the turnover battle, especially don't lose the turnover battle by 2. You can't be giving them too many possessions. I also think that if K-State keeps Avery Johnson upright, they're going to have a really good chance to win this game. Scoring touchdowns in the red zone is obviously very difficult, but if they can keep Avery Johnson upright and at least keep K-State in field goal range and take points, this is going to feel like an NFL game as far as points and field position goes. I'm not saying this is going to be a shootout or a defensive slugfest, probably somewhere in the middle, but I really believe K-State wins this game if they keep Avery Johnson upright and they score touchdowns in the red zone, because when you do that, not only do you put up 7 instead of 3, but you keep that crowd engaged. And this is going to be a really, really lively crowd in Manhattan on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of people who may not know, it's Harley Day at the Bill. And Harley Day is an awesome thing. You got a bunch of people on motorcycles that are circling the field and get the crowd all revved up. And the boys get ready to play. So the environment's, even though it's 2:30 game, it's going to feel like a night game, but with daylight. And it's going to be a great environment. And I truly believe that our kids are going to rise to the occasion. Now, we can't have turnovers, like you said. Turnovers, we got to win a turnover battle. And also, we have to be more physical at the point of contact. And also, we have to be more physical finishing plays. Last week, and it kind of maybe went unnoticed against the KU game, Joe Jackson was a lead blocker, and KU safety came down, ran the alley. And when I tell you Joe Jackson blew him up,
Yeah.
and I went crazy. And it went unnoticed to a lot of people. But I saw it, and I was like, that's what we need from both sides of the ball. And at that point, I knew the physicality was back at K-State. And that's what we need from both sides of the ball as well, a physicality component, and dictate what we need to happen.
Texas Tech is really good. And as we get into our predictions, I wanted to let it be known I will not be surprised if Texas Tech wins this game. I don't think this is going to be a blowout either way. If Texas Tech wins this game by 10 points, I think it's going to be an incredibly hard-earned win. And they can definitely do that. I don't think that that's, out of the realm of possibility. But I just look at everything that's gone on at K-State with the ups and the downs, the ebbs and the flows, where they are at this point in the season. And I'm not saying they're gonna win out or anything like that, but I feel really good about this team right now, and I feel like I would be foolish to pick against them because what I saw on Saturday is the team that I thought I would see the entire season. Kansas is not a bad team, but they made the Jayhawks look horrible, and I think this is going to be one of the best games of the slate on Saturday. I think this could be one of the best games of the year in the Big 12. I think K-State just kind of has that swagger and that mojo right now back. You look at how they reacted after big plays. You look at how they reacted in the locker room. They're bought in. And I think it's going to be a great environment. It's not going to feel like a 4-4 versus a 7-1 team. Monte, I think K-State wins this game 27-24. I think they find a way to stay in field goal range, kick 2 field goals, and take advantage of some opportunities given to them. Maybe they'll win it at the end. Maybe they'll hold off on defense. I don't know. But I think they're going to find a way to squeak this one out and move to 5-4 on the season.
I heard you. And it's funny how the good old Big 12 works. It's you never know. And going into the KU game, I know our players had in mind, and a lot of people were like, you know what? If he can beat KU, that can salvage the season a little bit. Even though if we don't have a winning record, at least we didn't lose to KU. But the way things work out in the Big 12 now, K-State have set themselves up to do a lot more than they anticipated 2 weeks ago. Like you talked about it. If they could win out, don't want to look ahead of myself, but they can win out. They can see themselves in Arlington, obviously become bowl eligible, and a lot more things. And it will affect next season as far as recruit and coaching staff. But the motivation is there. There was motivation before, but even more so, there's more to play for now. And so we don't care about ruining Tech's big day with BYU next week on College Game Day. That's more fuel to the fire right there. So basically they're saying this is a win that Tech's going to have. We just got to go through the process. If I'm K-State, I'm like, we about to spoil everything for everybody moving forward. So I think the Cats come out on top 35-31.
It's going to be one heck of a game. There's no doubt about it. As Monte said, it is my favorite day of the year, Harley Day. If you've never been to Harley Day, there are still some tickets remaining. They're going fast. I expect this to be a sellout. Get a ticket and go see Harley Day. It's the greatest thing in college football. K-State, the Wildcats versus the Texas Tech Red Raiders, 2:30 on Fox at the Bill. We hope you're there. Be loud, wear your purple. If you're not at the game, enjoy the game wherever you may be. For Monte Spiller, I am Cole Carmody, and we will talk to you next time.
Thank you for watching The Walkthrough with Monte Spiller. Make sure you check out our sponsor, The Wooden Cork, and use the code LIFEOFFITS for your discount. This has been a Go Power Cat and Spirit Street production.